is Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to be here today. You guys don't understand how lucky you are because our guest today is coming to us from across the pond, and she was actually willing to even get up in the middle of the night to make this happen. That's how willing she is to share herself, her story, her message. So without further ado, let me introduce Nina Szewczak. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me, Julianne.
I'm so excited that you're here. We had the pleasure and privilege is what I was trying to say. 2 P's in a row. A meeting just the other day, and I was so impressed with you. I'm really glad that we got to make this happen quickly because, yeah, you're awesome. So welcome to the show.
And same right back at you. I think it takes one to know one, and that's why we connected so easily and so quickly.
Yes, we did, didn't we? I would love for you to share a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Well, it's been quite a journey. So a bit about myself. I'm originally from Poland, but at the age of 20, I decided that if I wanted to achieve what I wanted to achieve, I needed to learn English. So where is a better place than in the UK? Obviously, in North America. However, back in those days, flying wasn't an option, and it would have taken me a little long on a bus. So I had taken a 24-hour bus journey to the UK from Poland. I didn't speak a word of English, didn't know anyone, didn't really have a plan other than wanting to learn the language because I've always learned German prior to that. And I arrived in the UK, and I've spent the last kind of 19 years here. And my own wellness journey has been actually... A lot of my journey has been to do with the mindset more so than anything else. So I had learned a lot I actually learned accidentally about the power of the mindset. And here's a story that I've never really shared publicly, but I've always used to suffer from motion sickness. And literally from a young age. So I'd look at the past and I'd feel sick immediately. And then at the age of 16, my mum had taken me to Greece on holidays. And on one of the days, we were going to Athens for like a couple of days trip. And it was a 4-hour bus journey there. And just before we got on the bus, my mum asked me if I'd taken the motion sickness pill, and I forgot. It was too late for me to go back. So I just lied and I said, yes, I did. So now I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm in double trouble because not only did I not take the pill, but now I lied as well. Of course, I get on the bus, immediately feel sick. And this is back in the day where there was no toilets on the buses and no aircon in like 33 degrees Celsius. So I get on the bus and I'm feeling extremely sick, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So in my head, I spend the whole 4 hours on the couch telling myself, I'm not feeling sick. This is just in my head. I'm not feeling sick. This is just in my head. And I felt so sick that there was so many moments where I thought, I'm not going to be able to hold back. But anyway, I survived the journey. And actually, ever since, I've never, ever felt sick on a bus or any other mode of transport. I've never taken motion sickness pills. I didn't know what I did, but I knew that something in your mind is responsible for you being able to control much more about how you're feeling than we're led to believe. So I think I've always, since then, I obviously had evidence that I can do something. I just didn't really quite understand what I did. So that was kind of the beginning of me learning about the power of the mind and how do we utilize it. Because we all come equipped with the most intelligent and sophisticated piece of kit on the planet, but there isn't really that much education about how to use it effectively for your wellness and in general. So I think that was a good start.
I love that story because, we all have things where it's like, wait a second, I had something where, I really discovered that life was happening for me. When I was a kid, my parents were divorced since I was really little. And my dad and my stepmom found this beautiful home in the next town over. And I wanted them to have it so badly. And there's no real reason why it didn't work out, but it didn't. And I remember being completely devastated because we were going to have property and horses and all the things. And it just didn't work out. And then my mom ended up passing away like 2 years later. And my first thought was, thank God that didn't work out, because not only would I have lost my mom, I would have had to have changed schools and lose all my friends and everything else. So it's like, wow, life is actually happening for me, even if it doesn't look like it. So, that was kind of the beginning of your mindset journey, but I know that it's been, you've taken it even further. The fact that you were able to go to a foreign country, not speak the language, not really have a plan. I mean, I know what that's like. That is so courageous. What are some things you learned about yourself through doing what most people would consider impossible?
I think you learn how much resilience you actually have, and you see actually you assess your levels of determination. I think these were massive things because the initial few months were horrendous. There's no two ways about it. I didn't know anyone. I didn't understand anything. The culture, although both countries are in Europe, the cultures are massively different. So you feel lonely. There is also not now, but back then, I keep saying back then, like back in the day, but back in the day, there were so many ridiculous rules where you couldn't open a bank account if you weren't renting a property, but you couldn't rent a property if you didn't have a bank account, and that sort of thing. So there was lots of things, outside of the normal, like not being able to communicate and live life as you know it. There's lots of obstacles in your way. So I would cry on the phone to my mum, who still lives in Italy. And she'd be like, why don't you just go home? Like, we'll send you some money, it'll be fine. I'm like, no, I'm 20 years old. I have to take responsibility for myself. And, I'm going to see what life is trying to teach me here and make the most of it. So you really learn like how much you can take when you are in the moment and when you're determined to make something happen. And of course, it's not easy, but, similarly to what you said, like things are happening for us and life is happening for us. I think one of my coping mechanisms from early on was that whenever I was going through traumatic experiences, and I'm not saying coming to the UK was traumatic. No, that's not the case. It was difficult, but not traumatic. But in other cases, when I'm going through traumatic experiences, very often my coping mechanism is basically, I know that there's a lesson here and I can't see it just yet, right? When I'm just like right in the middle of this hell, but I know that I will be able to see it and I will be able to find it. So then I'm on a quest to find the wisdom and leave the situation and whatever's happening with wisdom rather than with wounds, because I believe that everything in life is a choice, and from every situation you can get better or you can get bitter. You can have courage or you can allow fear to take over, and you can move on from things with wisdom or with wounds. And of course, life comes with so many ups and downs. Like, you can have the most positive mindset, but that doesn't mean that you won't be exposed to adversities and challenges and traumatic experiences. So just knowing that even in those situations, you still have a choice of how you're going to respond. You can either react automatically and without thinking about it, or you can respond and decide what the response is going to be and what you're going to make out of it.
I love that. This is probably an odd question, but I know that if I was watching, I'd be wanting to know this. You have this strong mindset, and it's not the most common. Most people aren't quite there yet. So they're looking at you like, how does she do that? I could never be like that. So do you ever feel sorry for yourself when there's stuff going on that you don't like, or it's traumatic, or, why is this happening? Do you ever ask yourself those kind of victim questions because you're in the feels?
No, I never ever ask why me, because I think, why not? Right? But why not? Like, every single person on this planet goes through terrible experiences at some point. So why not me? Like, why am I special to be immune to these things? I'm not. And I think, I think that asking why me is not gonna do anything. Feeling sorry for yourself. In fact, like, when people say, when things happen and they're like, oh, poor you, I feel sorry for you. I'm like, well, I don't feel sorry for myself, so don't feel sorry for me. Like, I think there is a lesson in there. And yes, it's horrendous, and yes, it's uncomfortable, and yes, it's painful, and yes, it hurts, whatever is going on. But ultimately, I have that, you build through those experiences, you build that level of self-trust, which I think is one of the biggest foundations you can have in life for anything. You build that self-trust that means that you feel that whatever life gets, throws your way, you will be able to either deal with it, you have the resources already within you, or you will be able to use the resources within you to find the resources that you need in order for you to deal with the situation. So for me, this is to me, being a victim, just, it doesn't even cross my mind, because it doesn't achieve anything. And ultimately, I believe that we're not responsible for our childhood. We didn't choose a lot of the things. We didn't choose our families, didn't choose the situations. But the minute you get to adulthood, that's your responsibility. The life you're creating, who you are, that is your responsibility. And yes, your childhood would have influenced you, absolutely. But what are you going to do? Are you going to now take whatever has happened in the childhood and allow that to direct the rest of your life? Or you're actually going to take stock and be like, hang on, I'm in charge here. I'm going to use this wisdom as a foundation to build something better. Because no one is going to do this for you. No one is going to live your life for you. No one is going to take responsibility for you. No one is going to come and save you. You have to do it for yourself. So there is a choice of either I'm going to feel sorry for myself because life had treated me badly, or because I didn't have the upbringing that other people had, or whatever has happened. Or you think whatever's happened, but I've got future ahead of me and I'm in charge of it. So I'm going to make whatever I want to make out of it.
I like that so much. I was just thinking too, like you said, everybody has their own thing. So, the grass always looks greener, but there's a saying, every job has a swear word, crap sandwich. Which crap sandwich do you want to eat? So it's kind of like, there's always something that we're not going to enjoy or like, but yeah, I like that idea of using it as a foundation to build something better, as opposed to letting it define you, because everybody goes through stuff. Every time that I have been up, I start to feel bad or whatever. Then I realize it's because I'm making myself the center of the universe. Like I'm the most important thing, and it's like, wait a second. Slow your roll. Not that you aren't special, Julianne, but you need to stop thinking about yourself so much, because it is not serving you. I love that. So I don't always ask this question, but I'm curious, with somebody like you who has done a lot of the work, because, you mentioned that it takes a lot of work to, change your mindset. How did you start building that? Was it through books? Was it through trial and error? Was it just innate that you knew it? I mean, how did that work for you?
I definitely did not know it. And in fact, if you look at me now as a person and a human, and me back in Poland, it's like two completely different people. I grew up in an environment where my mindset was, you have to always be right. Things are either black or white, yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad, nothing in between. I was the sort of person who, I actually remember saying to my boss, when she was telling me something, she was like, when it doesn't feel right. And I said, no. She was like, well, your intuition. I was like, I don't even have such a thing. I grew up in an environment and had such experiences early on in life that had made me disconnect from my emotions so much that my nickname for years in the UK was Nina the Knife. I was literally, I would move on from anything. No emotion, just crack on. Of course, there's lots of things going on, but I wouldn't allow myself to feel it. And I would be ruthless, and I would be unforgiving. In fact, one of my things was always, I would never, ever forgive. Because again, I was trained and grew up believing that forgiveness is a weakness. You never, ever forgive. Until I got in a situation where I felt so bad, and I had a choice of not forgiving and sticking with it, or being like, actually, maybe I need to take this lesson and learn forgiveness. So I did. And so again, a lot of this was just determination to see what's on the other side, what's on the other side of where I am right now. If I was to explore the other thing, what would it look like? So, and it was, it was through books, it was through speaking with people, it was through watching things, it was, seeking out the people that have done what I want to do. But it was basically like pure education that I wanted, of like, how do I do this? And also I ended up in roles where I was in senior leadership roles or eventually in training roles and so on. And I really wanted to understand, how is it that other people, come at things from different angles? So I was very passionate about learning, like, how do we operate as humans and so on, and how does it look on the other side? And ironically, to start with, I started learning because I wanted to know, what is it like from like somebody else's perspective, not realizing that perspective was within me. I've just never allowed for it to come out before.
That's fascinating. That's actually fascinating. I went through this period where I didn't know myself at all. I had to, when I was trying to decide, because I needed to go back to school and I had no idea what I was going to study. The way I figured it out was by looking at my books and going, wow, I've got a lot of nutrition books. I must really like that. Talk about disconnected. I was just like, oh yeah. It's so weird how it's like a survival mechanism in a way, and then it's fascinating when we actually open up and start to feel the feelings and pay attention to what our body is telling us even. So it's amazing that you were able to do that. So one more question about that, and then we do have to go to a commercial break. Who's like one of your favorite authors that you've learned from, or a book, or, something that's really helped you change your perspective or grow your mindset?
Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. 100%.
Boom, microphone drop. I love that so much. All right. On that note, it is time for us to go to a commercial. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to talk with Nina a little bit about some other more painful things that happened in her past and how she was able to use that to sort of create this new life of hers. And like I said, we'll be back in just a minute.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is Nina Szewczak. Welcome back. I just want to get right back into conversation. So, I mentioned, I just want to say this, I'm going to preface this. Some of this information can be found on your website. So I am not just like bringing up things to bring up things. But you have talked about, having a relationship blow up. And I was hoping that, not that I want you to get into like details or anything like that, but how did you rebuild from, because a lot of people deal with heartbreak, a lot of people deal with, loss. And, I'm just curious how you were able to take something painful and translate it and use it as a lesson.
By relentlessly working on myself, literally. Obviously the information is not secret, is on my website, but and I had mentioned one of the situations where I had to forgive, but basically I was in a relationship that ended up in marriage. We were together for 12 and a half years. Prior to us getting married, I was betrayed for a few months. And that was the moment where it was, well, you either choose to stick with "I'll never ever forgive," or you take the lesson. I chose to take the lesson. I went through therapy, lots of lessons. It took me ages to actually learn to forgive, to trust again, so on. But I decided that that's what I wanted to do, so I wanted to stick with it. And then a couple of years later, my now ex-husband proposed. It was a fairy tale proposal in front of 400 people, completely unexpected to me. We had a fairy tale wedding in Austria, lots of people, mountains, snow, all the bells and whistles. I genuinely thought I was living the dream. And then little did I know that on New Year's Eve 2021, 2022, just after midnight, ironically, I found out that my now ex-husband was living a double life for the prior 4 years. So literally from our engagement. So of course, this wasn't the New Year's Eve I was imagining. I think what perhaps was the most difficult thing, it wasn't even the betrayal itself, because, people could say, oh, you've been through it once, you can go through it again. But I would say, every time you go through it is horrendous. But I think what had hurt me the most, or what I couldn't understand, is how could you have watched my pain the first time, seeing what it had done to me, and then do it again for such a long time. And why would you get married? I just couldn't logically get my head around it. But of course, with that, again, I had a choice of either regretting that I forgave the first time, closing off and being like, well, that clearly didn't work, right? Look where I ended up. Or actually thinking, how would I know that I really learned the lesson in forgiveness unless I was tested again? Right? So that was my perspective on it. So actually, I decided to forgive pretty much immediately. It was hell. It was horrendous. It was a horrendous experience. But right from the start, I thought, okay, well, this is, again, a choice of what am I going to do? Like, there's nothing I can do about the situation. It's already done. It wasn't a democratic decision. I wasn't part of it. I cannot undo it. I cannot take it back. I cannot turn time back. There's nothing I can do other than take control of myself and see how I want to use this as a foundation for something better. So that was my approach. So my big aims was to move on with wisdom and not wounds, and to be able to forgive as quickly and as easy as possible. And so I started relentlessly working on myself, and that's how I got into neuroscience, because actually what I'd learned through all of this is that we very rarely suffer in the present moment. Or by what's happening in the present moment. What we're suffering from is by allowing our minds to go back to the past, to things that had already happened, you've already experienced, or go to the future and be anxious or fearful of the future. So if you're not in charge of your mind, and if you actually allow your mind to run you, you're either feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like a victim, or, feeling like, oh, back in the day it was better and now it's not so good, or oh my god, what's going to happen in the future, and so on. So you feel rubbish, even though there's nothing bad happening right here, right now. And all it is you're allowing your mind to do that to you. So I found that fascinating. So I started studying neuroscience and psychology of mental health. I was diving into literally everything I possibly could. And first thing that I did was I stopped watching all the news, everything that I was engaged in. I decided to walk away from everything. People were like, this will be a new chapter. And I thought, this will be a new book. Because for me, life is too short, to just get to know one version of yourself and create one version of your life. And I thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to do something completely different. And I appreciate that this isn't, for everyone, and not everyone would like that. But to me, starting a new chapter is a continuation of the same story, and you're in the shoes of the same character. Well, you can do that if that's what you want. But actually, I thought I can create something completely different. So why wouldn't I? So I walked away from my 17 years career. I walked away from studies, volunteering, everything that I was doing. I sold, gave away, donated everything. I took my 2 Dalmatians and a one-way ticket to Canada, packed my whole life into a 20-kilo suitcase. I went to Canada. So we went traveling, and I thought, I just want to see what will emerge, like reconnect with myself. But prior to that, before I did this, obviously for the first 6 months, like I would relentlessly work on myself. So I have to have a routine in the morning and a routine in the evening, and I'll check in with myself throughout the day, because everything starts with a thought. Everything. Like, you can eat all the good food and have good sleep and have good fitness, but if you have your thoughts that are driving you into feeling rubbish, nothing else is going to be as effective as it can be. So for me, your thoughts drive your emotions then drive your behaviors. Your behaviors determine your actions, and your actions create the experiences that you have in your life, and all the experiences adapt to what we call life. So unless you become aware of this and how your thoughts actually impact you, and I call it self-awareness, and I think as a society we see self-awareness very often as in awareness of the self on the external environment. How did I come across in this interview? Could I have behaved better in front of this person? Could I have presented better? So we compare ourselves to others, and we become more aware of, like, how do we operate in the world? Helpful, but not as helpful as the awareness of the self on the self, as in, what is this doing to your experience, and what experience are you creating by your thoughts? So that was my primary driver, and a relentless work on becoming aware, because awareness gives you power. The minute you're aware, you can decide whether these are the thoughts and the mindset that you want, or actually whether you need to change it. If you're unaware, you can't change it because you don't know it exists, or you don't know what it is. But awareness is power.
It is. So I know that you help other people, and you're an amazing coach, and I would love for you to share a little bit about what that would look like to work with you. And I put up your website down below for people to take a look as well. So would you please share?
Of course. Thank you. I love working with people because I feel so passionate about the fact that we don't need to suffer as much as we are. Literally, of course, things are happening. Of course, we're going through pain and horrendous times, but that's the human experience. You wouldn't really, know the good if you also didn't know the bad. So that's part of it. There's no need to allow the bad to determine your life. So in terms of working with me, I work with people one-to-one basis. So I get a lot of people who come to me, and very often they'll say, I don't know what I want in life, or they want to transition out of a career, or they feel like they have got a few choices and I don't know what to choose, or they go through adversity and they want to move on from it faster, and not suffer unnecessarily. So one-to-ones are definitely one way to work with me. I also have the Midlife Revolution course online, but I also have free resources. So one of them is called The Lemonade, in which is basically the story of, like, how my New Year's Eve went, and then that's the backbone of the book. But the rest of it is basically the steps to take. So if you want to overcome adversities, what you do. So it's a practical guide, more so than a story. And then the Midlife Revolution, also just a practical guide to basically take you through transformation of your life. And it doesn't have to be a whole life, like, I've taken a suitcase and changed my life completely. I know that not everyone is after that, but even if you want to change an aspect of your life, the same steps will apply. So, and that's available for free.
I love that. It's funny too, because, you and I have both done that. I have literally packed up and just moved across the world. I have done that. So I'm with you. I'm like, I don't need to be the same person. I'm going to be somebody else, a new version. I love that. And like you said, it's not for everybody. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it can be intimidating thinking, oh my gosh, do I have to do everything that they did? Do I have to do everything? Do I have to leave absolutely everything? And yeah, no, you don't. But like you said, if there's something that you want to change, or you want to show up differently, You got to get rid of that idea that you're your personality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So something that you mentioned that I'd love to touch on. You had said that during this time you had a morning routine and an evening routine. Do you still have something that you do, or is it more like you needed to get through the really hard stuff and now that things are better, it's not quite so mandatory?
I still have routines. I would say that I see a little bit like when you have a surgery, and you need, let's say you had a leg surgery, you need crutches for a bit, right? Because you need more support and stability, and then as you get better, use them less and less until you become independent of them. And I see this a little bit like that too, that depending on the time of your life, I have got a routine for what I want in my life and so on, but I have different routines depending on what I'm going through life. And of course, when you're going through a period like this, where after 12 and a half years, you found out that your relationship was basically built on lies and betrayal, that required crutches a lot at the start. But after that, you sort out your mindset, you focus on yourself. And that's, that was the focus. I was like, well, I can't focus on anyone else. The only responsibility I have got is for myself, and the only control you ever have, regardless of the illusion that we give ourselves that we can control so much. The only control you have in life is self-control. So that was my primary focus. So my routine, has been very, very strict back then. And I still have routine in the morning and in the evening, but now I more go with the flow and I do whatever feels right. And it's also really good that you highlighted the fact that, not everyone needs to pack a bag and move to the other side of the world, because I feel like a lot of the times when I deal with people, when I help people, is people feel like they don't know what they want, that they feel confused. Not because they don't know. You always know what you want. Always. I've literally never met a person who doesn't. The reasons you feel like you don't know what you want or you don't know what to do next is very often, we're either scared to admit to ourselves, because once you admit it and you're aware, now you have to do something about it, or resign yourself to the fact that you might not be as happy as you want to be, but you can't be bothered to do anything about it. A choice, right?
Amen.
So that's the first. That's the first reason. The second reason is that sometimes we know, but we're afraid to admit it because we're worried about the judgment of others. So I'll work with people and they'll be like, well, I really know, like, I've got these options, I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay. So I ask them one question and immediately it becomes apparent they know what they want. But what they're worried about is, the family expects me to do this, or, society expects me to do that. And so very often that's another cause of why people feel unclear or feeling like they don't know. Or, the third reason is that you've absorbed so much of the should, and I literally have banned the word should from my dictionary. To me, it's the most dangerous word in the dictionary, because should is so judgy against yourself and everybody else, that people feel like they should have that career, should have the success that looks like this, happiness should look like this. I'm like, what is this? And because there is so many shoulds from your family, society, from teachers at a young age, you cloud what you actually want and who you are so much. You feel like you don't know because you can't hear that voice from within anymore. So I find that these are the three common reasons when people feel like, I don't know. We just have to let that voice come through. But that's also why, for me, when you mention, not everyone needs to drop things and change your life, turn your life upside down. That's super key that you highlighted this, because I believe that a lot of the mental health issues that we have got and a lot of the unhappiness, 1 billion people are reporting mental health issues. 1 billion people, unacceptable. And I believe a lot of it is driven by the fact that we feel like we should go in this direction. You should have this career. You should be this person. We're not willing to admit to ourselves what we really want because of the fear of judgment and because of wanting to fit into the cookie cutter that has been created for society, by society, of what success should look like or happiness should look like. And then you basically create the life that you didn't want in the first place. And then it makes, and after a while, it's like, is this it? Well,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. It's like you climb the ladder all the way to the top, but the ladder is on the wrong building.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I
just,
actually did this one day. I went to climb a mountain and I realized halfway up that I was on the wrong mountain.
that's hilarious. I love that. At least it was good exercise.
Yeah, true.
So, this is something I'm curious about because and there's this is going to be a roundabout way of me asking you about this. Do you still or ever talk to your ex?
No, I don't have the need to talk. But I also I don't have any negative feelings or emotions about him or what happened. I've worked through it so much that, in fact, 6 months after everything happened, someone had mentioned my wedding to me, and I thought, wow, I was actually married, like I had a husband. My past to me literally feels like a movie I once watched. I have no emotions. Like I remember it. I am grateful for it. I am grateful for it because everything that I've learned and the growth that I've received as a result of it was worth it. And in fact, it was worth it to the point where if someone had said to me, Nina, you can go back to December 31st, 2021, and nothing happens and you leave the dream life you thought you have, or you go through hell again, I'll go through hell again. I'll choose to go through hell again because it got me to who I am today, and it got me to learn so much about myself, and it got me to decide who I wanted to be. So yes, it was awful. It was horrendous and it was very painful, but it was also an opportunity. It was also an opportunity to create something new. And if I had a choice, I would do it again, just for the growth. So, and it's interesting because actually, people still message me sometimes and they're like, well, he asked me if we can go out for a drink together or wherever, like, do you mind? I'm like, why would I mind? Like, I don't mind. Like, I don't care for him as my ex-husband. But as a human being, why would I wish another human being life of misery and not having friends or people not speaking to him because of something that he did, not even to those people?
Yeah.
And because of, and so to me, what's been has been. We're divorced, we went separate ways. I don't see any need to talk to him. I don't see any need to respond to messages because it's done. It's a past life. It's stayed, I always call it like, my box of the past that I'm very grateful for, but it needs to stay where it belongs in history.
And that was kind of what I was thinking was, a lot of people think of forgiveness as like, you still have to have this person in your life somehow, and that's how they're forgiven. It's like, no, that's the forgiveness is for you. It's not for them.
Absolutely. And it's, someone said to me like, oh, it's okay for you because you like did so much work and you forgave and you're happy now, but he will have to live with it for the rest of his life. And I'm like, he doesn't. He can do the work and self-forgive. Like, who's stopping him?
Exactly.
But that goes back to a choice.
Yeah. The only thing that's fascinating to me is why one of your friends or whatever would even want to go out for drinks with him after knowing what he did. I would wonder about that.
Well, because it's actually, because we had been together for so long, we have a lot of common friends. So it doesn't bother me.
No, it's just, I would think that knowing that he had done that to you, I don't think that I would really want to go out for drinks with him just because I've seen what he's done. But that would be me. Like, that would be a red flag. I don't know. Why am I any different or special? Why would he not do that to me? So, but that also is, just like a personal, I don't know. I don't have to worry about it. I'm getting married. So, and I don't live in the UK or know him. But anyway, on that note, it is time for us to go for one more commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a minute. Oh, goodness. All right. Put my foot in my mouth. No, just kidding. Anyway, as I mentioned, it's time for a commercial, but I just want to mention when we come back from commercial, we're going to talk a little bit more about, things that we can do to change our mindset and maybe little steps and things that we can just increase happiness and gratitude in our life. So we're going to be back in just a moment.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring our guest back, Nina Szewczak. Welcome back. Yay. All right. So during the commercial break, I was thinking about, things that we could talk about. And, I know that first I would love for you to start with, what do you do in the morning to prep your brain or prime your brain for the day and your thoughts?
Well, the first thing is not to start with just going straight on your phone. And so I don't use any technology or anything for the first couple of hours of the day. And I don't have a strict routine, as in I definitely always do this at this time. But in the mornings, I don't use any tech for the first couple of hours, and I'll meditate, I'll go for a walk, I'll write down my gratitude list. I often do an activity of Oscars given. So who or what would I give an Oscar for, right? So the sunrise, let's say, or if they're deer in the garden and they're absolutely magical. So it's basically just spending some time connecting with yourself, and also, very important, setting an intention for who do you want to be during the day. And, how do you want to behave, and how do you want to respond to things rather than react to things, and so on. So it's an intention setting time for me, and just connecting with the self and being mindful about what do I want from the day, rather than, the minute you go on your phone, you get so sucked in, because the minute you reply to one email, there's another, and there's a message, then there's something else, and then check social media. And before you know it, all you're doing is reacting to things. And then at the end of the day, you're exhausted, but very often you're exhausted, but you're like, God, I don't really know what I did today, but I'm so tired, right? So for me, the morning is about connection and intention setting. And of course, the routine can vary for people, but it's also very important to remember that our mind and the brain is in a hypnotic brainwave state just when you wake up and before you go to bed. And what that means is that has got access immediately, straight away into the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of our mental activity. So if within your subconscious, which is where our beliefs are stored, even if you wake up and you think, today I'm going to be happy, but actually your whole life you have been not so happy, and you believe, even without knowing it, because it might be subconscious belief, that actually you're not that happy person, then you can consciously think whatever you want. The 5% is never going to win with a 95, right? So the way to program your subconscious mind and start working on a good, positive, growth mindset is to utilize those morning and evening times, because that's when you can prime the mind for actually, absorbing what it needs to absorb. So for me, those times are about feeding the mind. People don't realize sometimes that the brain, yes, it's the most intelligent and sophisticated piece of kit on the planet, but it thinks whatever you train it to think. Just because you think something does not mean that this is, or even if you believe in something, doesn't mean that that's right or that's true. Belief is nothing more than a thought that you thought enough times for it to become a belief. We don't assess enough of this. So to me, whatever you feed your brain with, if you feed it with stories of the world is a bad place, the future is scary, the past was horrendous and it's probably going to continue like this. If that's what you feed your mind with, that's going to be your experience. So, you know, for me, the morning and the evening are about feeding my mind with things that I want my mind to think, because it's no different to a computer. Whatever you put in your folders is in there. Same here. Whatever you put in there will be in there, right?
Yeah.
But because the human brain has a natural tendency for confirmation bias. What it means is that the brain will seek out examples of things it believes to be true and find them and confirm them back to you. A little bit like when you suddenly, you know, if you decided to buy a red car, suddenly you start noticing so many red cars everywhere, right? There aren't any more red cars. But now you pay attention to it, and your brain, because you're focusing on it, your brain will seek out examples and show you the evidence. It's the same with anything else. If you wake up and you watch the news, and of course the news is sensation driven, so all you're going to see is tragedy everywhere. And if you're priming your mind for that sort of thinking, your brain will be seeking out the examples of the negatives. Just like previously you didn't notice the red cars, now you do. You're not going to notice the positives because you're priming your brain to be afraid of the future. You're priming your brain to feel like the world is a bad place or scary place or whatever. So the morning and the evening are definitely key for, you know, getting your subconscious mind sorted and making sure that actually be conscious of what you're feeding your mind with, because that's the experience that it creates for you.
Exactly. You know, I want to share this because I think this is really important for people to hear. When I lived in Italy, I was taking this art class, and it was a landscape painting class. So we went to the same spot every single week for, I think it was 2 months. And I think we were probably the 4th week in. And I literally would go to the exact same place and put up my easel and do my painting. And all of a sudden, 4 weeks, mind you, and each time we were there for 2 hours, I'm looking at the same spot for 2 hours. So now we're at now we're at 8 hours. Okay. I'm looking at the same exact spot, and I see a building there that I'd never seen before. The building was always there. It was not like they just built it. It was always there. But after 8 hours of staring at exactly the same spot, I finally saw it. So that was like the coolest thing for me, because it's like, how many things do I miss that are right in front of my face? It was always, I mean, it was older than me. You know, that building was hundreds of years old. It was definitely older than me. And I just noticed it. And I'd literally been staring at it for 8 hours, the same spot. So yeah, it is kind of what, you know, you get.
This is an excellent example. Absolutely. Because the brain, we get bombarded with so many informations, not even just like, you know, the media and everything else, but your subconscious mind sees every registration plate, not just the leaves on the tree, but the texture of the leaves, you know, the soil under the ground, like everything that we don't even think. And there is so much information that it has to filter things out, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to cope. So in order to filter things out, it focuses on what it believes to be true. So if you train it to believe in negative stuff, that's what it's going to focus on, and that's what's going to show you, right? If you train it to, if you feed it with positive stuff, that's what's going to do. Like, it's literally no different to a computer. Like, you can train. Of course, it's complex. And of course, you know, there are things that we have got from our formative years and so on, but you have trained your brain to be what it is today and have the outlook on life that it has. You have done that. You can retrain it to something else too. And like, I'm the prime example of this. And, you know, and I don't believe, and this is what's important, I am no different to anybody else. I don't have any superpowers. I don't have any, you know, bigger brain, super intelligence or whatever. Like every single person can do this. Any one of us can do this. It's just a matter of choice and choosing that that's what you're going to do. You're going to be the master of your mind rather than the mind mastering you, and you being the servant. And, you know, and you become aware. So when you decide that, you take the reins, you become aware of, you know, what your mindscape, as I call it, you decide, like you become aware of your mindscape, and then you decide what weeds you need to weed out and what new seeds you need to plant in to create the mindscape that you actually want. Because we don't do enough of that, you know. With computers, we upgrade, we get new ones, new versions, whatever. But we don't do it with our brains.
Exactly. Well, we only have about 2 minutes left. It went by really quickly. I'm just curious if there's anything else that you would love to share with the audience before we wrap up. Maybe something new, or if you want to reiterate something, that's awesome too.
I think the big things for me is you always know what you want and you always know your truth. You just have to be willing to listen to it and like silence the mind so you can hear the whispers of the heart, really. I think the big thing is you are in charge. You are in charge. No one else is. So you are responsible for your experience. Become aware. Once you become aware, awareness gives you the power to choose, and then you can choose what you want to do. And then I think the big thing that I haven't talked about is that you will fall down. Of course, like we're driven, you know, the subconscious mind is wonderful, but it is an autopilot. And it literally, just like when you get in a car and you get from A to B, you get out, sometimes you think, how did I even get here, right? Your subconscious mind drove it, right? And that's super helpful in those cases because you don't have to consciously focus like you did when you were learning how to drive, and you don't want to do that every day. But that also drives our habits where you wake up and you have the same routine every day and you don't even realize it. So become aware of what are the habits, what are the routines, and what you want to keep and what you want to change. And of course, you will fall down and you will trip up, because if you had been repeating something for years and years and years, then your mind and body are now, you know, like a robot and addicted to it. So it's going to take time to change it. But you trained it this way once, you can retrain it to whatever you want. And genuinely anyone can do that.
I love that. I love that. Nina, thank you so much for being on the show today. You dropped a lot of knowledge bombs, and I really appreciate your insights. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Oh, it's been so wonderful to be with you. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope it was helpful. Of course, I love to answer any questions. So if anyone feels like getting in touch, as you can tell, I'm deeply passionate about life and making sure that we are making the most out of every day here. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone, that is all the time we have for tonight. And we will see you again soon. Have a great week.